Roundtable, so every day comes with its own challenges, and technology sometimes does give us challenges. But then I was just saying earlier that, the trick is to keep moving and improvise and think of plan B. So I'm really particularly excited today to be joined by the most wonderful human being in Eleanor Petersen, who is the COO of Everest Financial Services. And she's going to be having a really light-hearted, warm-hearted discussion today with us on the topic of the future of financial leadership, compliance, culture, and human-centered governance. Eleanor, welcome.
Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm really excited. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Eleanor. And I was saying to Mary earlier that, LinkedIn is such a connector of a platform, and we are grateful to it. That otherwise, in the olden days, I would never have met or interacted with even the people that we connect with on LinkedIn. And thanks to Mary, now I know you. And we are just so grateful. And looking at your profile, we know that you have spent about 3 decades in this sector. So that comes with a rich background and a whole lot of wisdom and a whole lot of insights that you're going to share with our viewers, our audience. Just for context, we upload these episodes and these discussions on our YouTube channel, and our YouTube channel is really buzzing because we promote the discussions to multiple African countries. So we are excited that the young people, the up-and-coming entrepreneurs in our continent will really get to hear your story and what you are all about. So before we get into the discussion, Eleanor, just for context, can you just tell us briefly about yourself on a personal level, who you are, where you're from, and really anything that you're obviously comfortable to share with us? And then we'll deep dive into today's discussion. Over to you, and welcome again.
Thank you so much, Pamela. Eleanor Petersen, I am currently the COO of Everest Financial Services, but other than work environment, I am a mother of 2 adults. I can't call them children anymore. They're literally adults. I live in Johannesburg, but I work in Middelburg, Mpumalanga. So yes, I am a traveler at the moment, traveling from one province to the next, but that's who I am, loving who I am at the moment, loving the person that I've become. So yes, I'm enjoying the age that I am right now.
Oh man, that is just really wonderful. So it's quite really an inspiring background. So I hope the traveling between Mpumalanga and Johannesburg doesn't exhaust you very much, but I know that it comes with really the environment where you are doing meaningful work as well. So just as an icebreaker, then Eleanor, you spend a lot of time in the financial services, industry. So if you were not in financial services, what other career would you have pursued or opted for?
So when I matriculated, after I matriculated, I studied travel and tourism. So most probably would have been a travel agent. And in today's day and age, we call them travel influencers. So I would have been a travel influencer if financial servicing and compliance was not where I am at the moment. Yes, a travel influencer. That's what I would have been, more than likely.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yes. No, this just goes to show that, life is really a lifelong journey, because how you start off, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's how you're going to end up. And it just also talks to our young people, because they study all sorts of degrees and all sorts of certifications and qualifications, but you find that they are in other industries, so it just goes to show that, as we progress through life, we also need to embrace being adaptable and actually explore other avenues as well.
Actually, the travel and tourism was really, although I didn't go into the industry, in my first job, it really helped me because I was working for a German company at that time, and I was then in the, it was called an area department, and they then hosted people traveling from all over, mostly Germans traveling to Johannesburg and to the business. So I did help, although I wasn't totally in the travel industry. So yeah, like you say, life, gives you twists and turns, and adaptability is the thing to do when you're young and opportunities come your way.
Okay, absolutely. So let's delve into your leadership journey, right?
Yes.
So can you walk us through, the journey that shaped your leadership philosophy, and how you see the world and the lens that you see the world, especially having spent over 3 decades, in terms of, your career. And, so really what has shaped your leadership philosophy up to this point?
So really in the past 3 decades of where I've been, my leadership journey has really been shaped by 3 distinct periods. In my first one, going into the industry, it was more about detail and learning the environment, learning the industry. And so detail became a big thing, details and accuracy. And that has also taught me in the first part of it that accuracy builds good decision making. If you have the information and you know the detail, it helps you build, a structure. And as I progressed in management, it became more about people. You learn that as a manager, the people are important. Yes, the structures are there, but the people are important. And so important became communication and how you communicate and what culture you build. So that was the second phase of in just starting in management. And then as I became into senior management and involving into strategy and also compliance, that's when compliance came in about. It was more about directing and navigating the people that in my team and the organization. So that was really part of where I was, and that was really part of it now in my leadership and where I am now as COO and becoming, board member. The philosophy is really built on integrity and, balancing compliance, balancing operations, and balancing people. Having the integration of all 3 of those makes it important. So right now, my leadership philosophy is really built on integrity, the foundation of trust and accountability, and then the driver of performance, that is making sure that there's performance and what I'm thinking, and then of course the empowerment of my team, making sure that they know that their input is valued, that I listen to them, that I hear them. And then, of course, once we have all of these things, I believe that people and the organization that is guided by trust and support, that the organization thrives and the individual thrives. So that is where my leadership and my philosophy is currently, Pamela.
Sure. Thank you so much for these insights, Eleanor. I love the fact that you are very clear that it's really centered around balancing, ethics, balancing integrity, balancing governance and human-centered leadership, because that is really, really key. If any of these pieces are missing in your leadership philosophy, something has to give, right? And I think you've seen it as well in your, in your vast experience, so which then leads me to a prompt that says then, having shared all of this, so what have been then your biggest leadership lessons from bridging, you've mentioned that balancing operations, compliance and strategy. So talk to us about maybe 2 or 3 biggest lessons in terms of bridging operations, compliance and strategy.
So for me, it is balancing details with seeing the bigger picture. Operations and compliance, it's about rules, it's very detailed heavy, those stuff. But strategy requires vision. So to balance the details and looking at the big picture, for me, that's important. And then building alignment and trust. I think, it's important that we, although compliance is regulatory, that it doesn't stifle the growth of the organization, and that it enables sustainability in an organization. And that is what compliance do. And of course, for me also, translating. Communication is important. People need to communicate, and that then helps to, give people guidance and to make sure that people are knowing that. So finally, and so for me, it is important that these kind of pillars support each other, and make sure that it's bridging all the areas to reinforce. For me, strong leadership means that being both a guardian of integrity and a driver of growth. So for me, that is what is it's the building blocks for me, and the pillars that I try and base my leadership on.
Yeah. Can you then just unpack it further? Because you've touched on compliance, that it's often seen as, rules and red tape, but your view is different, so can you just unpack it for us a bit further in a context that says, how does then compliance become a foundation for trust in business rather than red tape?
Absolutely. Yes, compliance is absolutely seen as red tape and confinement and stuff like that. But I think it's the basis of good business. I think if business is built on rules and on strategies and on building blocks, it then sets the right foundation. And you can only build on that foundation. And the stronger the foundation is on regulatory and compliance, the stronger the building will be, and the building will stand for longer. If you're not building on those kind of rules and regulatory and setting the right tone for the organization, the building will fall if it is not built on the right structures. And so for me, yes, compliance is about rules, but how you implement the rules and how you explain the rules and how you give clarity and transparency, it then helps the people in the organization to then understand that what we're putting in place is not to control you, is not to put you in a prison, but it is to make sure that the foundations are strong and that we can build bigger, stronger buildings when we do that.
I like this. What I'm taking away from this is just really, how do we communicate with clarity and transparency when it comes to compliance, so that, people in our organizations and society and our communities, we don't create this perception or this feeling that there's a hidden agenda, or we're trying to catch people out, or there's a trap that we are setting for people.
Exactly.
So, so if there's like clarity, transparency, and just really meaningful, lighthearted tone from leaders in terms of, what is also the impact if we do not do certain things a certain way? What is the impact to our organization, to our communities as well, right? So which then, prompts me now to say, how do we then use, building up on what we have said, how do we then use compliance frameworks to advance, diversity, equity, and inclusion within financial institutions? So DEI has been a buzz, in our corporate settings and even in our geopolitical spaces. So how do we then in this space, use these compliance frameworks to promote and to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially within financial institutions?
So I think the heart of compliance is really about fairness, accountability, transparency, and principles. And one of the big principles in our compliance environment currently is treating customers fairly. And that ensures that there is suitable accessibility for clients, that clients understand what they are buying and what is the benefits of what they are buying. It also means that, we have frameworks that can help for accountability on a business side, to make sure that your business is accountable for what they present to the clients. and so that our clients are comfortable, they are confident in dealing with you and knowing that you are a reputable organization. So yes, the frameworks are important, and customers know that when they deal with your organization, you are treating them fairly, you have got the right principles in place, you have got the right frameworks in place, and they are then confident to do business with you. So absolutely, compliance is an integral part in financial servicing, and making sure that the people you deal with and the people that deal with you has got the right understanding of what needs to happen and how it needs to happen.
Yep. So what I'm taking away is that, we need to use compliance frameworks in a human-centered approach.
Absolutely.
And also with transparency, and also to be able to break down these abstract concepts, because sometimes, also as leaders, we make the mistake of assuming that because we understand the language and the jargon a certain way, so the normal man in the street must also understand what this means. So I think if you look at our landscape in South Africa, and where we come from in our history and where we come from as a people in a society, not everyone has the similar level of education. And, also in underserved communities, we've got rural women, we've got rural youth that really lack access to the type of information that comes with, the lay of the land of financial institutions. So I think what I'm taking away is that then how do we use these compliance frameworks in a human-centered approach, as we then now dive into our next segment that talks to particularly culture, really then, and human-centered governance. So we often hear, in most strategy books and strategy, digital platforms, where people talk about the phrase that says culture eats breakfast, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So I don't know, if that's true or not true, and what does it mean? People have got different interpretations. So I'm particularly then interested to hear what is your take, in this context of this phrase that says culture eats a strategy for breakfast, and what does a healthy organizational culture, from your perspective, actually look like in the context of this phrase?
Absolutely. That's such an interesting culture eats strategy for breakfast. I was at a leadership conference about 2 weeks ago, church leadership, and that was the phrase that started the whole leadership conference, culture eats strategy for breakfast. But for me, for healthy organizational structure, it needs to be built on a few pillars. But the most important pillars for me is integrity. It's a safe space, and it's excellence. When you deal with people with integrity, and there is fairness and there's transparency, it really builds trust, and people can then see that your intentions for them as an individual and for the business is absolute growth and empowerment. So when you start opening there, and safe spaces, give people an opportunity to raise their concerns and to criticize where they think that what you are implementing, or not necessarily criticize, but have input in what you are putting out there and the decisions you make. So give them a safe space. Make sure that they feel comfortable to give their opinions, and give them opportunities to provide their own input in there. So safe spaces for me is important. It builds people, and it gives people security to know that my organization, my leader listens to me and is open to my suggestions. And then third is excellence. Any organization has to have the foundation of excellence. If you're dealing with the public, and if you're dealing with suppliers and other people, the kind of service you give them has to be based on excellence. Giving excellent service is not a once-off thing, it's a daily thing. And so your priority has to be that I always give good service, that I give good service, whether it is a client, whether it is a service provider, or whether it is my colleague, that whatever my interaction with you will always be based on professionalism and will always be based on excellence. So those, for me, creates a good culture. And once you have a good culture, and once you have an excellent culture based on those kind of pillars, for me, a safe space, integrity, and excellence, when you build your strategy and when you put your plan, which is your strategy in place, people know that the strategy will then also be focused on those kind of pillars. So for me, good culture is based on integrity, based on a safe space, and based on excellence.
No, thank you so much. And it is really, really true, because I think, there's this term, psychological safety, has been spoken about at length, in most organizations and society. So where if people don't feel safe, trust also erodes, so thank you for really hitting that on the head in terms of just really breaking it down, because then this environment then comes with a whole lot of governance structures as well, so that regulates, how certain things ought to be and how these institutions are run, especially in the financial services sector.
Yes.
So in terms of how then institutions are organized in their governance structures, so, and you've seen different committees and governance structures, obviously, in your experience. So let's just then talk about the real impact, and how do these governance structures in this sector really impact people on the ground? You've spoken about human-centered governance, you've spoken about, transparency, but then can you give us like practical, insights around, the governance structures and how they actually impact people on the ground?
I think governance really is built on accountability. And I think where leaders walk the talk, when you are, what you say is what you do, employees then see integrity in that. And then it is expected. So that government structure of accountability is important. So for me, governance is not just about, the rules and what needs to be. It's creating an environment, enabling people to thrive. It's making sure strategy is out there and strategy aligns with the culture of the company. And so that clients and also our staff can experience that, yes, we have rules. Yes, there is governance in place, but more than that, our company is built on a solid foundation of trust, accountability, and also making sure that the business that we do benefits our clients, benefits our communities, benefits our families, and that we are in a company that takes all of those things into consideration. So yes, governance is rules and regulatory, but it is also people, like we said, people-based, to make sure that the company then thrives in all areas holistically, and so that for me is what governance should do for a business and for the company.
No, thank you so much, Eleanor. Thank you so much, because I think, building on what you've said, is also very important that we also put on a future focused or a future forward lens as well in terms of leadership, right? So, which then let's unpack the next segment that talks about the future of financial leadership, right? And really for you looking ahead, at where we are now, not only in South Africa alone, just in terms of what's happening worldwide, in your experience and your context in the environments that you operate in, around the future of financial leadership, so looking ahead, what kind of leaders do financial services and insurance sectors need for the next decade?
That is very interesting. And as being in the industry for such a long time, it does become quite overwhelming to look at for the future. But for me, really, future leadership in financial environment is technology. With the AI and how AI is transforming our world, I think a future financial industry leader needs to be updated with technology. Technology is going to play a massive role in how we deal with our clients and how we interact with our clients. So yes, absolutely. And then of course, compliance. In the financial industry, it is important to have compliance. It's important to have rules and regulations that will steer our industry for integrity, for honesty, for sustainability,
Yep.
and then of course for me is it's of course the human connection. Any business who does not take their people with them and lead their people in a human-centered organization will then not develop and will then not thrive. So for me, future financial services, definitely technology is the first one, which is scary in some days, but also compliance, and then of course be human orientated. For me, those are the pillars that I would say that a future company needs to build their business on.
Yep. And you're absolutely right, Eleanor. I mean, AI is in full swing, right? It really is
Yes.
in full swing. And we have seen, the positive impact. And we've also seen the not so positive impact of AI, especially where it is not used, ethically as well, So, and in that context, then where do you see the biggest risks, as well as the biggest opportunities for financial leadership in South Africa?
So the risk is really non-compliance for me, and the first thing is not being honest when you deal with your clients. In the financial industry, we deal with people's monies, we deal with people's futures. And so a big risk is when we are dealing with them unscrupulously and not dealing with them with integrity. And so for me, that's a big risk, and it erodes your credibility as a person and the credibility of your organization quickly if you deal unscrupulously and you don't deal in truth with your people. So for me, that's a big risk in our financial industry. And we find a lot of people are not dealing with people's monies in the right ways and people's futures in the right ways, because financial planning is for the future. It's not for today. So for me, that's a big risk. Yes.
Yes. So I think really ethics, accountability, transparency, human-centered governance, compliance. You said it all, actually. AI,
Yes.
technology, the future of leadership. And but what really remains, you are really focused on really, compliance in a transparent fashion and human-centered governance, right? So I think let's switch it up now and get into our next segment that will lead us to a close. In terms of just really unpacking your own personal dimensions and community leadership, right?
Yes.
And I'm just
That's
really
the passion.
excited. Yes, I can see like your face is lighting up, when I said the community leadership,
Yes.
So I'm just really unpacking for us then in a context that, because then, these are the things that happen beyond the boardroom, right? And we know that you are active in women's empowerment, you are active in youth education, you are active in faith-based leadership as well. I mean, when we started talking, you mentioned something about church and so hence we put in like the faith-based leadership in here. And so these commitments, women empowerment, youth education, faith-based leadership. So how do these commitments shape you as an executive?
Beyond the boardroom and beyond everything else, this has really shaped me. This has shaped me as a person and as a woman and as a mother and so on. So for me, the power of mentorship is important. Mentoring young women, mentoring the people around you, the younger generation. So that is important for me. It's important that we build our young people. It's important that we build our sisters. So treat them with the same kind of respect that you have wanted when you were at that age of 20 and 30. Teach them the right way, show them, the best teacher is to teach somebody else what you know. It is, it's empowering them, it's giving them the tools. I've been 20, I've been 30, and these are the kind of things that you need to look out for me. So yes, absolutely. Being a mentor has been one of the biggest parts for me, and I experience being a mentor and trying to be a mentor in my daily life as often and then of course in youth education. It reminds me constantly the importance of building for the future. It's not about today. It's about giving our children a different platform, giving our children a level up from where we started, giving the youth opportunities, opening opportunities for our youth. So for me, education and being in that platform, it's important. It really builds our next generation, and it really then sets them just at a different level where we started from. So that for me is important. And then as a Christian, that is the basis, that is the center of who I am. And for me, that is where I find my strength. That is where I get my confidence from. That is where courage is built, is knowing that I have Jesus Christ as my savior, and then as the basis of where everyday life starts. And so for me, those are there. And together, these things keep me grounded. Me helping to help my younger generation working for the children, and then of course my Christianity. And these remind me that leadership is ultimately about service, leaving people and institutions and communities stronger than what I found them. That for me is what makes me Eleanor Petersen.
Eleanor Petersen, giving our children the level up from where we started. That's what you just said,
Yes.
And I'm actually just literally getting goosebumps because, the way that I can just feel the passion, I can just sense and I can just hear the passion, because it just really talks to, who you are. And it's very important then that as a leader, you are very grounded in your spirituality, whatever spirituality that means for you. And you are also actually grounded in terms of how the lens then that you use to see the world, and how do we use our privilege, to then empower others and not gatekeep information. And because what good is that going to serve? Because now, from a decade from now, you spend 3 decades in this industry. So a decade from now, you also then want to look back and say, and look back to this discussion as well, and say, what, I am the girl that I think I am. Okay,
we're getting there.
You also mentioned that, we need to empower our sisters because, sure, the PhD in women's circles, the PhD put her Down syndrome, is really, really real. So it's really heartwarming to hear a leader of your stature and impact say these words, that we really need to take care of our sisters as well in any shape or form.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so, before I start preaching, because now I can sense that I'm getting emotional. So what advice, would you then give, to young women who want to lead in the financial services sector, but they really feel overwhelmed by the barriers, by all sorts of barriers, that we get, that they experience, in their environments? How do they navigate the space?
For me, for a young person coming in there, I say, don't let the barriers define you. You know, seek out a mentor, seek out a sponsor, you know, that will open the door for you. That's the first thing when you're getting into there. Second is just be resilient. In every industry, in every career, resilience is what builds you. You know, a mentor of mine always said, the things that come to you did not come to kill you, but to skill you. So resilience, the challenges that you see, take them on with resilience, take them on with courage, you know, that's going to build your inner man. And then, of course, embrace continuous learning. Learn every day, take every lesson, learn, and don't stop learning. It says leaders are readers, and leaders read. So constantly learn, constantly, educate yourself on things you know to better understand it. On issues you don't know, go onto the internet, get a book, and learn and understand, so that you are prepared for when you get into the boardrooms and you get into the meeting rooms, that you have an understanding of what is it. So for me, it's simple. Stay anchored in your values. Whatever you've decided for yourself, stay anchored in your values, invest in your growth. That is the biggest thing. And surround yourself with people who believes in you and believes in your potential, and just embrace that. But also just believe in yourself. Believe in you as the woman you are, as the person you are. Believe, like you says, I am that girl. Believe that.
Yes, I am the girl that I think I am. Yep, okay.
I'm the girl that I think I am. Yes.
Yeah, so let's go into, oh my gosh, you are so inspiring. You know, honestly, Mary, at some point we need to find time where we have a face-to-face lunch meeting, something, you know, coffee, anything.
Yes,
with Eleanor, so that we can soak in some of her wisdom, right? And because I always say to Mary that we don't meet people just for the sake for vibes. We don't do vibes. So we meet people to build network and connect other people as well. You know, so thank you so, so much for your inspiring words. So as we close, and some closing reflections, so if you could define the future of leadership in 3 words, what would they be?
Really, for me, is inclusiveness. Be, as a leader, include and be open for all of that. So inclusiveness is one of my pillars that I do. The second one is transformation. The world changes on a daily basis. Our environment changes. So transformation for yourself, transformation for your people, transformation is another pillar that I would love to send. And then the most important is integrity. Deal with people with integrity. Always treat people with respect, and make sure that what you give out there is laced with integrity at all times.
Yep. Thank you so, so much, Eleanor. Integrity, inclusion, and transformation. So really, before we then close, I just really like also to just reinforce that this will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. And I did mention earlier that it will be promoted to multiple African countries, specifically Southern Africa, East Africa, and West Africa, just to really continue to get the message out there and empower our continent as well. So I know that we have people in the call. So if there's anyone that really wants to say something to Eleanor before we close, you are welcome to do so. Unmute yourself. If there's something that you want to say, Luyanda, you are more than welcome. This is your moment to shine. Don't miss this opportunity.
Yes, Luanda, do you want to say anything?
Maybe okay, let me go first. Thank you so much. That was really insightful. As you know, me and Eleanor, we talk often. So that's like an extension of everything that we talk about. Really, really helpful. And you mentioned when we started the call, the power of LinkedIn, the power of visibility. And that's how me and Eleanor connected through the power of LinkedIn. That's now bringing a lot of people across the world together. It's now a small place where people from all walks of life come together, and that's the beauty, and that's how we all connected here. So yeah, I really found this session to be insightful. Thank you so much, and I cannot wait to watch the replay as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. So with that, let us then close. Eleanor, thank you for your time. So really thank you for your energy. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for sharing your insights, just really, and breaking it down and making it simple. The topic, especially as it relates to compliance, governance, and human-centered leadership in the financial services industry as well. So to our listeners and our viewers, please then do connect with Eleanor on LinkedIn, follow the Diversity Roundtable on YouTube to watch this episode and really reflect on how compliance and governance can be reimagined as tools for inclusion and trust in our institutions and society at large in our continent of Africa. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you, Eleanor.
Thank you so much, Pam. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for Mary for the introduction. And I only wish you and your organization success upon success. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.